On behalf of the California Film Institute, welcome to For Your Consideration, a celebration of world cinema. A celebration, very apropos. I am Lars Ulrich. I'm super psyched to be here speaking with filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg, whose film Another Round is the official submission from Denmark for the Academy Awards for Best International Feature Film category. And Thomas, as some of you may know, is also a fellow Dane. So we have a special treat for you today, which is that we're going to conduct the whole Q&A in Danish.
Ja, selvfølgelig.
To keep it authentic along the lines of the film also. Så nu begynder vi at tage den bare på dansk her. Thomas, hvordan går det? Hyggeligt at se dig.
Ja, det er godt det der, Lars. Jeg synes bare, vi kører videre.
Vi kører bare videre. All right, maybe we'll save the Danish gibberish for when Tom and I are just hanging out together. Let's get rolling. Thank you everybody for joining. Hope you enjoyed the film. I myself have seen Another Round 3 times in the last month or so. And when I think of this film and the last couple of international films that you did, like Kursk and Far From the Madding Crowd, it's incredible to me to see that this film is made by the same director. It feels to me that you reinvent your whole aesthetic, your cinematic language with each movie. Walk me through how you do that.
Well, Lars, I work from curiosity. I investigate whatever I do. And when I jump on board a ship like Kursk, it's a different world, and my tone becomes different, and I adapt to the world that I'm in. Now, when I do my own movies, it becomes closer to myself, and it seems like when I dig into my own backyard, it becomes very much me, of course. And it looks very different from when I do my international jobs, which is more like work for hire, I guess, which is scripts written by other people who invites me on board their venue. That's why they look so different. But I don't know if Another Round looks that different from my older Danish movies.
No, you're right. I think that it's interesting you said your own backyard. Obviously, this film is very much in your own backyard, and Kursk, which is called, I believe, The Command in other parts of the world, obviously is very different. It's interesting to me that you said your own films, and then you also use the phrase work for hire. Tell me just a little bit more about your process and how you, I guess, along a timeline, do you have in your mind sort of your own film, an international film / work for hire, your own film? How do you bounce through those two very different worlds?
Well, the thing is, when I work abroad, it has been per invitation. And I love doing that because it comes with a certain lightness that I don't have to carry the work of the script, which normally takes years as well. And it comes with a great encouragement of meeting new people in new worlds, in new countries. And I've realized that every time you meet new people, you set yourself up to something, and they set themselves up. And there's a lovely and very interesting energy that happens when you do that. Now, writing my own scripts, making films with my old friends, such as with Mads Mikkelsen or Thomas Vinterberg, is a bit like coming home to my family.
Right.
And to some extent, I guess it's a deeper thing because it's all me. It's all on me. Every word on the piece of paper that they say comes from here, you know. Right. And the toing and froing between those two things is full of energy because they're so different. Those two ways of working.
Right. Well, it's great that they coexist together so effortlessly. Also, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, we were having dinner, a lovely, fun dinner with our wives, and you told me about this crazy idea you had for your next film. Emphasis on crazy. and I obviously loved it. I thought it was interesting, provocative, etc. Obviously, Finn Skålero, or how you pronounce his Norwegian name, is a real person. And when did you first become aware of his theories, and when did you first realize that there was a potential film in there?
Well, it started with me just looking at world history, basically. And I just saw how many huge and fantastic accomplishments that had been done by drunk people, basically. And I thought that was interesting. I looked at Churchill and I thought, okay, this guy sends a couple of 100,000 people, civilians, into war in fisher boats. And when he made that decision, he was probably not sober.
Of course. No.
And I thought, would he have done that same decision having been sober? And those kind of questions appeared in my mind. Then later on, my editor, who's from Norway, said, "So you're interested in making a movie about alcohol? You should read this theory." And
so
and
the
that's
seed
sort
of it. So the seed was making a movie about alcohol, about drinking, and then you became aware of the theory.
The journey is like this. We wanted to make a celebration of alcohol, pure and simple. That developed into becoming a film about alcohol, looking at the bad sides as well. You've just seen the movie, and you can see that we explore both ends of drinking. We were fascinated with the fact that this socially accepted liquor can elevate conversation, can make people marry, can make world leaders make great decisions and create great music. And yet at the same time can destroy families and kill people. That for us was such a massive, energetic field to explore. Then we became more ambitious, Lars. We wanted to make a movie about life, basically, about being inspired. The word spirit does not only mean alcohol. And the word spirit is embedded in the word inspiration.
Of course.
And I guess these guys have run out of inspiration,
Right.
such as many other guys of their age, or just many other guys and human beings. They've lost curiosity, and they've lost the element of risk in life. And they impose this experiment on themselves and become reawakened. So we wanted to make a life-affirming film, which is of course very ambitious.
No, and I like the spirit part of it. From what I can gather, this is the fourth film that you've written with Tobias Lindholm, Submarino, The Hunt, The Commune.
Right.
How do you guys? What's your writing process? Are you together? Are you separate? Do you take a turn through the script, then he takes a turn, or do you literally sit, opposite each other and volley back and forth? What are the specifics of the writing process?
It's a bit like a bicycle team. So first we'll sit together in a room. We'll try to find the essence of the film and map it out on a big whiteboard, basically. And this takes a long time. And then we would pitch it to our friends, and they'd say, well, we don't understand this, and we'll go back and work some more, and months will pass. Right. But when we eventually start writing dialogue and script, it's like this. One of us rides in the front, like on a bicycle team, and we go speed writing. Like I write 10 pages, and I don't read it. I don't look back. I just write 10 pages and throw it back to Tobias, who then catches it and rewrites it. And then we go back and forth like that.
6 days.
What?
6 days loop. Right? Isn't that what
6 days loop, exactly. Yeah, this bicycle
race and forum was called.
Right.
That's great. Tell me the scene around Nikolai's 40th birthday celebration around the table in the restaurant. It feels so. Among the many parts of the movie that feels I'd say extra Danish to me. There's some of the lingo, the language in there, and I look forward to saying this. I'll call it street Danish, gadedansk, kraftedeme opfører sig ordentligt, et los i røven, en ordentlig skideballe. These very Danish street terms. I guess since most of the scripts I've seen throughout a few of the films I've been involved in, it's hard for me to imagine that kind of Danish lingo living on the page. Et los i røven og så videre. Or, when you're shooting, for instance, the scene around his birthday, is that the four actors who obviously know each other well, who you know very well, are they improvising a lot of that kind of back and forth, or is it scripted exactly like they're saying it?
This particular scene is scripted exactly as they're saying it. And it's because I know these guys so well, so I know their language better than they do themselves.
Yeah.
I love the way Thomas Bo Larsen talks, and I've been loving that for 30 years. So when I put this on page, I just know how he would say it. And this is how I do. I write for my friends. Now, of course, there's improvisations in the movie, such as they go to the harbor trying to catch codfish, and they're ridiculous, and the end of story. And the rest they have to come up with themselves. But at a dinner scene like this, which was incredibly difficult, because it was so long, and it did not have to seem long, and Mads had to cry, and all of this, and it had to be fun at the same time. And there was all these, it was like a bit like a symphony in the movie. That took a lot of work, basically, a lot of rehearsals, a lot of shootings, and a lot of editing. But the words are mine.
That's great. Regarding the shoot itself, I have read, obviously, that none of the actors at any point were drinking, or at least while they were working on set. I don't know what they were doing off set, but obviously on set, there was no drinking. Explain to us a little bit about the research and the process of correlating their behavior at the different rates of inebriation, of drunkenness, to get that into their performances. I know there was quite a lot of research and prep that went into that part of it.
Well, we had a booze boot camp of 2 weeks.
Of course you did.
Before shooting. And at that point, there was alcohol. Okay. Because I was challenging these are four, Danish actors, and that these are four big guns in Denmark. Those are the best you can get.
Yep.
And that's where it starts. That's what you need. It's like a chef. He needs some good meat to make a good steak. You can have good meat and make a bad steak, but you cannot have bad meat and make a good steak. So, okay, here's the best guys. And then they had to protect a very detailed emotional journey, all of them. And they had to be very funny, and they had to be very moving and likable, and they had to be drunk at very specific levels. So it was a huge challenge, and I expected that from them. So I said, let's work on the drunk thing. And we looked at the police. The police have a schedule on how to see how drunk people are. Of course. It's like at 0 point this, they start singing. At 1 point this, you get sleepy. Right. At 1 point even more, you can't get your clothes off. And this point you start, And we went through all these levels and just tried it out with some alcohol, without alcohol.
That's great.
And then we watched.
Did you have somebody like a coach or somebody advising you, or was it literally just you and the four principals?
When it comes to drinking,
you don't need a lot of it. I know you don't need it. And obviously I think it should be no secret that obviously you and I are friends, and right. I've been to a few gatherings with a few of these actors also, and obviously know how this works, but I'm so interested in the process of it. And
right. But let me tell you some more about this acting, Lars, because there's two ways. Like when you play drunk up until a certain level, it's like with every other emotion on a screen, you try to hide it. It's like if you have to play that you're in love, you would pretend that you're not in love and that you don't care. And the same thing as if when you're drunk, you would go very straight and measure your movements and make sure that everything is correct. And then in one crack, you'll show that the guy's falling. Okay, so it's all about hiding and how much you show and not show. Now, when you go beyond 1.2, it's a different ballgame.
Okay, yes.
It's just falling around, and it very quickly looks silly and overacted. It becomes this tragic ballet. And that was suddenly about shoulder pads and mattresses, and because you don't protect yourself when you fall when you're very drunk, and stuff like that. So it became suddenly very technical.
Were there times where you were shooting a scene where you felt that the inebriation level did not match, the performance itself? You're supposed to act drunk, or you're acting too drunk for what
Yeah.
the scene was at the time, and then
And I would go
pull it back
0.2 up and expect them to do it. And they would go, Thomas, this is difficult. I'm like, do it. And but of course, there was, they were so generous. Right. They just tried things. And of course, when you just try things, there will be material to cut out as well.
It sounds like when you're talking about this, it sounds like the camp element that you're describing from the 2 weeks of drunk camp. It sounds like at least elements of that filtered in through the whole shoot.
Right. Well, of course. And the thing is, amongst the five of us, the four actors and me, there's complete faith. We've known each other for so long. I can speak very freely to them. If what they do sucks, I can tell them right away. It's not like there's a lot of politeness going on. There's a lot of faith and warmth. And by being so direct and so respectful to each other still, you can come very far very quickly.
Let's talk about, switch gears to locations.
Right.
Copenhagen is obviously a smaller filming environment. And so you have particular neighborhoods, schools, the end sequence, the final meal, and then the dance sequence obviously is outside Lumskebugten, Bomseloten.
Our regular place.
That's right, that you and I know very well together. And so did you purposely stage, were there emotional connections to Lumskebugten, obviously to the neighborhoods? At one point, I thought the school actually looked like the school that I went to in Hellerup, Mauliger School, but then at some point I could see that it was not. But are the school, the neighborhoods, and just tell me about what drew you to these particular locations in terms of your own experiences and your own knowledge of these neighborhoods and so on.
Well, the school, there's a good saying that has been around for years, which is write about what you know about. Okay. And I follow that on this movie. This school was my daughter's school and my wife's school. They all went there, and it's called Auerhøj Gymnasium. So I knew pretty much everything about that school. And it was sort of a love declarance to that place and to our country. Lumskebugten, where he's dancing at the end, I had a fabulous night. You were involved, your dad, Bono, Champagne, right, and Thomas Larsen, and we had one of the best dinners I've had. Yeah. And that has
been much more than a dinner.
Right. I didn't want to get into details, but right you are. It became a long dinner. Yeah. And I loved that place. So I was drawn to come back to that. And then it had the water right outside of it. And I like the Copenhagen town is a town at a harbor. So it comes from, it's con amore, these places. It's places that I know really well and places that I want to show the world. This is a love declarance to my country and our country, Lars.
Yeah, no,
our songs, our schools, our weird drinking culture, and so forth. I got to remind you, one of the Kickstarters of this movie was when I had a wonderful Hollywood writer coming to work with me for a week. She's called Jane, and she's super intelligent and great. She meets my daughter Nana, and she says, Nana, what are you going to do today? And Nana says, at this point, she's like 45 kilos, including her school bag. And Nana goes, I'm going to do the lake run. And she's like, okay, but what's the lake run? I have to run around this lake 3.2 kilometers and empty a box of beer. And this woman looks at me and goes, when is the dad going to interfere? Because she's American. But the dad is used to drunken kids in the street because this is Copenhagen. So I just laugh, and she goes on, okay, Nana, aren't you going to get sick? And Nana goes, yeah, but if we vomit synchronized, time will be deducted. And this woman goes, what's going on? And she says, what about the police? And Nana says, oh, but the teachers are there, you know? And I realized there's something about the Danish drinking culture that I need to explore.
Yeah, no, and that was actually leads me right into the next question. I mean, Denmark has obviously become very synonymous with a very progressive, a very liberal drinking culture. Like I said, I've seen the movie 3 times. It's very interesting to me to sort of see, you know, read the room and the shocks that are coming back from people. And when I recommend the people, probably I'd say 10 of my friends have seen it in the last few weeks, and when we discuss it afterwards, again, there's an element of the shock of the progressive drinking cultures. Are there any specific elements of the scenes that are written from your own experiences? I mean, own specific experiences?
Well, both my daughters have run the lake run.
Okay.
But I wasn't there. And
I don't remember the lake run myself. You and I are closer in age, obviously, than to our kids. But the lake run part, I don't remember. Obviously, most of the rest of it identify with easy. But are there any specific scenes in the movie that are written almost out of your own experiences?
Not private experiences, no, but out of, well, a lot of the conversations amongst the friends are inspired by conversations with my own friends and stuff. But there's not like anything super specific. But I have to say about the Danish drinking culture, a lot of these kids that run around these lakes and stuff, when they get out of high school, they stop drinking. They become young adults, ambitious, they want to form families, and it all goes away again. And I guess that's not normal. I think maybe the problem we have in this country is a little bit the contrary. Everything has become super measured. Every step you make is measured by an iPhone. You have to lay out your plans for your education super early. And you have to appear on social media 100 times a day. So they're super structuralized, and they just need a little bit of liberty in small slots, and that's where the drinking comes in.
Right. Are there any of the 4 characters, just to finish this point, are there any of the 4 characters that, or I guess I'd rephrase it and say, which one of the 4 characters would you most personally identify with?
Every time I write a character, I'm in there. I'm a part of
Is there a piece of you in all 4 of them, or?
Well, I guess the main character, Mads Mikkelsen's character,
Martin, yeah.
Martin, is the one that I know best. But Lars, my life, I've never had a midlife crisis. I would probably have had a midlife crisis if I have a really good life. I love my wife. I have fantastic kids, and I'm super lucky, except from one thing, which is this tragedy that happened to me, which as you know, I lost my daughter during this making this movie. And it overshadows everything. So I don't have that much in common with them. They have regular problems. I have a catastrophe in my own life. So it's kind of a little bit different. But if my identification, I think, comes with all of them. And when I was in my 30s, I had friends experience the same scenes as with Maus, Nikolai, and the young kids, and there's a lot of these scenes that are scenes that I have heard of, to put it that way.
And you touched upon this next. You keep touching on where I'm going next. We've spent 20 minutes now primarily talking about drinking and Danish drinking culture, etc. But obviously the alcohol, and you touched upon this earlier briefly, the alcohol is really the catalyst, the instigator. But this really is a movie about relationships. It's a movie about the undeniable realities, maybe of the impending middle age coming in for a bunch of guys in their 40s. Obviously, you touched upon that. Would you expand just a little bit on
Of course.
what's underneath, the point of the film? Because obviously, alcohol is more the vehicle to get that point across, right?
Right. When I wrote the script together with them, with Tobias, as I told you earlier, we got the ambition of making a life-affirming film, a film about something larger than just drinking, but about living, about allowing yourself to lose control and therefrom to gain something. This was our ambition in writing the script. Then I lost my daughter, and I did not know whether to continue or not to continue. I was destroyed, and I'm still destroyed by it. And we decided to make this movie for her. And we decided that it's no longer an ambition to make a life-affirming film, but it's a circumstance. We have to elevate this to become more than just about four stupid guys. She loved the movie. She wrote me a letter before she passed away, 2 months before she was killed on a highway. She wrote me a letter saying how much a complete love declarance to the script. And she would be brutally honest. So I know that she would have been sad if we didn't do it. So we made the movie for her, and we had to elevate it and to become more important than our first ambition. If you feel that there's a warmth in this movie and a sense of love in this movie, it's probably because when I came back to this film crew and to these four actors, they did everything they could to carry me through. And I feel it on the screen. And if you laugh a little bit, it's probably because those four actors tried to make their director laugh at a point in his life where it wasn't really possible.
No, I hear that. I told you this on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I'll still say it, having seen it 3 times now. And I obviously say this, which in no way precludes anything about your other movies, but the way this movie connects with me, the elements, the language, the Danishness, the culture, the history, and are there elements of being locked up or being isolated and locked down and so on, and wanting to go to Denmark. I was supposed to go to Denmark 2 or 3 times this year, and then that didn't happen and so on. But it really speaks to me, this film, by far. And I try to not get too into the whole my favorite, or people rank your 5 favorite films and all that nonsense. But this film speaks to me and connects to me in a way that film rarely does, and certainly no other film has for quite some time. And I think that what you're just talking about is obviously a significant element of that. There's just something about the joy and the celebration of the Danish ness in this. I love that
Right.
Danishness that just really comes out. But at the same time, obviously my wife is not Danish. My kids are Danish citizens, but they,
Semi-Danish.
a lot of the people who have seen, a lot of the people I've recommended the film to are not Danes, and they also really connect with it. It's interesting because I connect whenever I see a film that speaks to me. I recommend it to a dozen or so of my friends, and I can often gauge by what I get back, how it sort of will work maybe in a bigger picture scenario. But everybody who I've recommended this film to just texts me or calls me back after, oh my God, that was crazy. I've never seen anything. I loved it. It's just the enthusiasm. And so I'm sure that everybody is connecting to an element of what you're just talking about.
I thought that in a world of confinement, bankruptcy, death, and a very hostile political climate, um, is this film going to land slightly irrelevant? That's how I felt. And it appears that the opposite is happening. People need to see this celebration of life somehow.
Right.
At least they did in Denmark. It's been a massive box office in Denmark.
You were saying the other day that, did you say like 800,000 people had seen it in Denmark or something like that?
Yeah, which is
That's
a
that's
lot
like
of our very small population.
that's 1 out of every 7 people, or
Right.
something like eight, 1 out of
It's,
8.
Lars, in our movie houses, youngsters came in with a bag of beer, wanting to see this movie before they would go out
Right.
and see it for the fourth time. And next to them, there would be anonymous alcoholics who feels that the movie's about them.
Right.
I think we never become moralizing, and also we never sell alcohol. It's a sort of a survey that
It's
everyone can
also
make.
like what you and I talked about. It's also what the movie is not, what the movie did not end up becoming, because when you pitch it, if the 15-second pitch, 4 midlife guys try to, reinvent their lives by jumping into bottles of alcohol. I mean, that could very easily take a very different turn, a very silly turn, and
Right.
not have the depth and the emotional resonance that this film ends up happening. So it's also about all the choices that were not made. I got 2 questions relating to what we're talking about. Everybody that, like I said, have seen it, I just feel like that they just really, really, really engage with it. Are there stories in Denmark? And I guess once again, you just skirted it a little bit. Are there stories of like copycat acts, or people that are doing their own version of talk of another round and getting groups together and trying to do their own studies? I mean, are there any stories like that have filtered back to you?
I've heard some worrying stories, actually. Well, the French distributor ended up making The Office drunk the whole day. And I never heard back how that went down, but I'm very curious to hear that. I also heard some stories about young students trying this at school. And of course, that worries me a little bit,
A very fine line.
This shouldn't be taken too literal. I was at one point thinking about writing, don't try this at home. But yeah, there's been people doing that. And there's a lot of people trying to do the dance primarily.
Sure.
People love the dance. So there's a gazillion videos of people trying to imitate Mads.
Of course. Another element just on what we're talking about. So I've seen it all 3 times with Danish subtitles. And it's interesting to me,
You mean English subtitles?
of course, we'll try that again. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I've seen it 3 times with the English subtitles, and even though I obviously hear and understand everything that's being said, it's impossible for the eye not to, somewhere between occasionally and often, go to the English subtitles. And especially, my father. My father and I often talk about and are fascinated by the Danish and the English language, about how it syncs up and how it doesn't sync up, and how, do you think in Danish? Do you think in English? Do you dream in Danish? Do you dream in English? Do you create in Danish? Do you create in English? All these elements. And so you said earlier that most of it was written exactly how it comes out. There are obviously some Danish isms that are very, very difficult to translate. There was one word that I wrote down when I was watching the other word, bagklog. What a great word, bagklog. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I can't help you. But even the title.
What? Of course, talk. Yeah, no, I mean, I've talked to many people about how to even translate that. But so I'm interested in, so the English subtitles, obviously there are elements that cannot really be translated. Well, first of all, have you seen the movie with the English subtitles? And when you see your words that you created not translated, sort of exactly the way that I presume that the way you wrote them in Danish, does that bother you, or does it? Do you just sort of let it go, or do you trust that whoever is translating it just does it so the film makes the most sense in English?
I try to dig into it, and it's always a bit dreadful because you lose a lot. You lose a lot of nuance. But sometimes it becomes more specific what you're trying to say. It becomes more clear. It becomes clarified. So there's the occasional advantage in the subtitles. But I dig into it and I'm trying to see if I can find the tone. But as Danish is my mother tongue and English is not my mother tongue, it's a bit of a give and take with the translator. And of course you lose some. But yet still, I think the vibe of the movie and
totally,
it survives. Right. But I should.
Bagklog was great.
The word book, the title, which I guess means something like heavy drinking. It's a bit like someone said to me. So in Greenland, they have a lot of words for snow. In Denmark, you have a lot of words for drinking. Of course.
I think that pretty much caps it right there. Let me switch just a couple questions where we switch gears. You started off doing a lot of music videos, and we've even enjoyed a great music video experience a couple of 12, 13 years ago. Obviously very different medium. Do you ever see yourself potentially returning to something like that, or is it something that you feel is in your past?
I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, working with you guys was an extraordinary, luxurious experience. I thought that was so fun and so great and so elevating. And the same when I did my Blur video some years before that. No, it's a genre that I really like. I don't know if I master it because it's not my everyday thing. And there's so many youngsters out there who know how to shoot these things. But I thought it was great fun. It's not what I'm pursuing. It's not part of my everyday phone call. Do you want to shoot a video for this and this and that? But I really enjoyed it. It was short and sweet. I really liked it. And seeing you guys up on those hills, being so professional, while I was shooting dust in your eyes.
That was crazy. That was crazy. Absolutely legendary time. So to some people, and obviously a lot of film fans in America, you will always be associated with Dogma, the Dogma movement, which you helped start back in the mid 90s and really represents the Danish film community to the world. Some incredible films, some incredible directors, writers, etc. came out of that. What are we, 25 years past that now? Obviously all of you guys have found your own footings and drifted in and done your own things. When you look back on that now, what are your takeaways?
Well, I loved doing it. It was it was you know, an explosion of energy, joyful, creative energy. It was amazing, and I often miss it. And every time I speak to Lars von Trier, we talk about this. And the obvious question would be, why don't you then continue to make dogma movies or continue the movement? But it has to do with a little bit like what you've seen in my film. They, in the movie, they jump off a cliff and they do an experiment, and they do it hand in hand, which is the ultimate sense of solidarity, which you know from your band, right? Every time you do an album, you jump off the cliff and try something. And we did that back then, and there was an element of risk, and it was a revolt against the existing system. And we wanted to undress the cinema. We wanted to make purity and make the naked cinema, without music, without makeup, without artificial light, without just the raw film and the actor. Now, then in Cannes in '98, this became a massive success, a worldwide success. And suddenly it was no longer naked. It was a fashionable dress. And it was a ticket to a festival if you did a dogma movie. So the element of risk vanished. And suddenly you could get dogma furniture and whatever else. And then, you know, the spark disappeared.
Of course.
And then we needed to explore other territories, which was a bit of, which was sad because we loved it. Now, on a personal level, I did a film called The Celebration, or Festen. And I felt I'd done, in that specific direction, the ultimate movie I could do. I couldn't get further down that path. Yeah. And I had to turn around and look the other way, which confused me a lot for quite some years, which gave me creative challenges. And which is exactly where I met you, because I was, you know, doing some stuff with your friend Champagne and blah, blah, blah. And those were some difficult years because dogma was such a great experience.
Yeah. No, and obviously I can relate to what you're talking about, and most creative people can relate to all of that. When I was around you guys, the thing that I felt was, you know, and to the world to a degree, was that spirit of community and camaraderie, unity, and again, because Denmark is such a small place, that really was so apparent for a few years. Just give our audience an idea of what's the state, or in your mind, what's the state of the Danish film community in 2021?
Well, the dogma movement is history, but I still see the guys. We're still friends, and I work in the same company as Lars, and we still read each other's scripts and all of these things. Denmark is a strong film community. We have a thing that you don't have in the States, which is state support. You know, any of the movies that I've done in Danish could never have been financed in the US market. If I would come up to you and say, I want to make a film about 4 alcoholics who teaches their students, it's going to be difficult for a banker to say, yeah, great. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, yes.
And we have state support, which strengthens our community a lot. And then we have, it's a small community, which means that we help each other. Some compete, some help, you know. But so I think the state of Danish cinema is pretty good at the moment. But there's no dogma movement.
Of course. So on behalf of the California Film Institute, thank you for joining. Thank you to Thomas Vinterberg for this incredible film. Thank you for joining for this Q&A. We appreciate all of you being a part of this out there. And we look forward to seeing you next time on For Your Consideration, a celebration of world cinema. I'm Lars Ulrich. Thank you very much.